The wind howled across the lonely Arizona trail as Thomas Creed, a quiet but respected cowboy, guided his horse along the narrow ridge that cut through the red canyons like a scar from another age, the dying sun turning the sky into a blazing river of gold. He had ridden this path 1,000 times, delivering supplies between ranches, but that evening something felt off, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Then he heard it, a faint whimper, weak and trembling, barely louder than the wind. Thomas reined in his horse and scanned the trail, until he saw a shape collapsed. In the dust, an Apache woman, young, wrapped in a torn blanket stained with blood, struggling to breathe. Her ankle looked twisted, her face pale, her hair matted with dirt and sweat. Thomas jumped down and rushed to her side, his instincts pushing aside every warning about tribal tensions or the dangers of helping someone who might belong to a group known for fiercely protecting their own. "You're hurt," he whispered, placing his hand gently beneath her shoulders. She flinched, but there was no strength in her resistance. "White man?" she breathed, her voice cracking. "Leave me!" Thomas shook his head. "Not a chance." Carefully lifting her, he placed her on his horse and began the slow walk back toward his cabin, every step echoing with the weight of a choice he knew might come with consequences. The night grew colder, the desert wind cutting through his coat as he carried her inside, started a fire, cleaned her wounds, and wrapped her ankle. She didn't speak much, but her dark eyes followed him with a mixture of fear and confusion. "My name's Thomas," he said quietly, offering her water. "I don't mean you any harm." She hesitated before whispering, "Nayeli." Hours passed as the fire crackled and her breathing steadied, and by dawn she was strong enough to sit up. Before Thomas could offer breakfast, she stood, wincing but determined. "My people watching," she whispered. "I must go." Before he could protest, she slipped out into the early morning haze, leaving only a few footprints in the dust and an uneasy feeling twisting in his gut. Thomas spent the day working in silence, replaying the night over and over, wondering what danger she might be walking back into. When darkness fell again, he returned home exhausted, and as he approached his cabin door, something made him stop cold. On the wooden plank carved deep with a knife was a symbol, not random, not careless but deliberate. A circle with 3 vertical lines beneath it, drips of sap still fresh where the blade had cut. The mark pulsed under the lantern light, strange and unsettling. Thomas stared at it, heart pounding. He had heard rumors about Apache tribal symbols, warnings, messages, judgments, but he didn't know what this one meant. All he knew was that someone had been close enough to his home to carve it in silence, and that it was connected to the woman he had saved. As the wind rattled, the windows and coyotes howled across the canyon. Thomas felt something he hadn't felt since the war, the sense that forces larger than himself had just stepped into his life. For viewers enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe, because the next chapter will reveal the shocking truth behind the mark and the dangerous events it brings to Thomas Creed's doorstep. Thomas barely slept through the night, his mind haunted by the strange symbol carved into his door, glowing faintly in the lantern's reflection like an omen he wasn't meant to ignore. And by sunrise he had made up his mind. He was going to find Nayeli and demand answers, or at least understand why her people had marked him. He saddled his horse and rode into the cold morning air, following the faint trail she had taken the day before, but the path quickly disappeared into the brush, replaced by only whispers of movement and rustling leaves. After hours of searching, he stumbled into a small clearing where smoke rose gently from a hidden camp, and before he could call out, 3 Apache warriors stepped from behind the trees with bows drawn, their eyes sharp, their faces hardened. "Thomas Creed," one of them said, surprising him with the use of his name. "You helped our sister." Thomas raised his hand slightly, trying to keep calm as they surrounded him. "I did what any decent man would," he answered, though he knew not every cowboy would have done the same. The warrior who spoke gestured for him to follow, and with guarded steps Thomas walked deeper into the camp where Nayeli sat beside an elderly, man with grey braids and ceremonial paint across his face. "This man," the elder said, tapping the symbol drawn on the ground beside him, the same carved into Thomas's door, "has been chosen for a debt of honor." Thomas swallowed. "Debt? I didn't save her for payment." The elder nodded slowly. "That is why the debt exists." Nayeli looked at him then, her expression softer than the night before. "My father is chief," she said. "He sent men to watch. They saw you help without fear, without hate." The chief leaned forward. "This mark means you are under our protection. Your home, your land, your cattle. No Apache will ever harm you." Thomas blinked in disbelief. Protective marks were rare, sacred gifts given only to those who proved themselves in extraordinary ways. Why me?" he asked. The chief gestured for him to sit, and when Thomas did, the elder continued. "Because for many seasons, this land has seen only anger between your people and ours. You broke that anger for one moment." A long silence followed as the campfire crackled between them. Then the chief spoke again, his tone turning heavier. "But protection comes with responsibility. Riders from the north come seeking violence. They will come through your valley. We cannot stop them without causing war, but you can warn your people." Thomas felt the weight settle on him like an anvil. If he warned the settlers, they might fight. If he said nothing, the Apache could be blamed for destruction they didn't cause. He looked at Nayeli, who watched him with quiet trust, and something inside him steadied. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll speak for peace if I can." The chief nodded, rising slowly. "Then our mark is not misplaced." When Thomas rode back home that evening, the sun dipped behind the canyons in a blaze of red, and for the first time he looked at the carved symbol on his door, not with fear but with understanding. It wasn't a threat, it was a bond. Over the next days he rode from ranch to ranch, warning settlers of the incoming danger, convincing them to fortify but not strike first. Tensions ran high, but when the northern raiders arrived, they found the valley prepared and united, forcing them to retreat without a single shot being fired at the Apache. Word spread fast across the territory. Thomas Creed, the quiet cowboy who once kept to himself, had brokered peace where war nearly ignited. A week later, Nayeli returned to his door, her ankle healed, offering him a beaded bracelet woven by her own hands. "For honor," she whispered, "for courage." Thomas accepted it with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. And as the two stood on his porch beneath the vast desert sky, he realized that a simple act of kindness on a lonely trail had changed not just his life, but the fate of two peoples. If you want more emotional Western stories like this, full of mystery, twists and powerful morals, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss the next chapter of these cinematic tales.